Hello and welcome back to In Conversation with the Royal Butler. Now, for today's episode, I was having to think about what our next conversation could be about, and something that has sparked a huge debate in the comments section on my YouTube channel, and not just there, I've noticed in other platforms, is to do with royal titles. And to be specific, also to do with Prince Harry's titles as of how things stand at the moment. And I had an interesting exchange with somebody where it's very difficult, because when you have worked for these families, you're fully aware of how it works, how the system works, of titles, protocols, traditions. And when I'm trying to put that across, it can obviously, it can get lost in translation, I suppose. You can get a bit kind of mixed up in it. And as I had this conversation trying to explain it, but obviously the other person couldn't understand. And I wanted just to kind of clarify the points when it comes to royal titles. Now, as I've mentioned before, the Queen, the monarch, she's the one that basically hands the titles out. That's her right, as our monarch, as the Queen, she hands the titles out. Now, what some of you didn't know is even the title of the Prince of Wales is a title that's given by the Queen. It's not an automatic right. So the present Prince of Wales, Prince Charles, my old boss, he was given that title by the Queen. When Prince William becomes the heir apparent, so he's obviously will be the next in line to the throne after his grandmother has passed and his father is king, he will still be the Duke of Cambridge and his wife will be the Duchess of Cambridge. Now, they only become the Royal Highnesses, the Prince and Princess of Wales, if Prince Charles, as the King, and that could be King Charles III, or it could even be King George VII, if he decides to make them the Prince and Princess of Wales, that's his decision. And then from that moment onwards, or after the investiture, they will then take up those official titles. In fact, they can actually be presented with them before, and then who knows if there'll be an investiture. I'd assume that the way it was done with Prince Charles, something similar will take place again, possibly in Wales. If that happens, there's nothing to say it. There has been, in the past, heir apparents who have not been Prince of Wales. And of course, famously, queens, our Queen was never a Princess of Wales, if I can say that, because it goes to the male. At the moment, the way things stand, it goes down the male to the male heir apparent. Now, it was George V that issued the letters patent HRH. Now, HRH is His or Her Royal Highness, and he made it possible that his children and grandchildren would be styled with those titles. But our present Queen has changed that slightly, because all her children have got HRH. You've got His Royal Highness Prince Charles, Her Royal Highness Princess Anne, His Royal Highness Prince Andrew, and His Royal Highness Prince Edward. But it didn't necessarily go to their children. So obviously Prince Charles's children, because William and Harry were directly in line to the throne, well, Prince William certainly is, Prince Harry has moved down, but they were given HRHs. But for an example, Princess Anne's children were given no title. It was decided with the Queen and Princess Anne that they would not be an HRH they haven't even got a dukedom or earldom or anything like that at all. They're just Mr. and Mrs. It's as simple as that. So therefore you have Mr. Peter Phillips, and at the time it was Mrs. Zara Phillips as well. So very simple, very straightforward. But the debate that's been sparked is in particular to Prince Harry, because a lot of people assume that because he has stood down as a member of the royal family, he has lost his title of HRH, and also, very strangely, they think he's no longer the Duke of Sussex and his wife is no longer the Duchess of Sussex. And this is completely untrue, because as things stand, and as far as it's been allowed by the Queen, is they are both still their Royal Highnesses the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Now, it has been said that Prince Harry doesn't worry about using the title. He has in the past said he doesn't expect people to give him a full title. I believe he's quite happy being known by his Christian name, and it's the same with his wife. However, when there's official occasions, we will still see them referred to as the Royal Highnesses the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, unless the Queen changes that. So it has been said that the Queen apparently withdrew that. The Queen has not withdrawn that. She's taken away, obviously, as they're no longer working members of the British royal family, they've lost the patronages and similar things like that, but they have not lost their titles. So Prince Harry is His Royal Highness the Duke of Sussex, and his wife is Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. And as I said, that's how it will remain until either the Queen decides to change that, or it is always possible, because it's been said that Prince Charles is going to modernise the monarchy. He's apparently going to make it smaller. This is not a new piece of news. It's been discussed for a long time that it's possible that he will want a slimmed down monarchy, and that would be Prince Charles, his wife the Duchess of Cornwall, and his son Prince William, his wife Catherine, and his grandchildren. So that would be the actual future of the monarchy. That group is the future. So it is possible that later on Prince Charles might then decide to remove Prince Harry's HRH title, but I very much doubt it, because he is still he's the son of Prince Charles and a senior member of the royal family. So I don't see that happening. What is possible is what Prince Harry has said about how apparently he's not worried about using it, or doesn't seem to want to use it, especially when he's in the States. So that kind of makes sense. I know a lot of you will say, but he is using it. It's his decision. It's the call of us. We, whether you're Mr. or Mrs. or Lord or Lady, we have the decision as to how we are addressed, how we are known, which is what's so wonderful about the world we live in today. So if Prince Harry wishes to use the title, it's there, and if he doesn't, then that's entirely up to him. And I have said to people, if you doubt this, obviously go and check out the monarchy website, where it's quite specific with titles. And it was interesting, because when I wished Prince Harry a birthday, wished him a happy birthday, because it was his birthday last week, or this week, depending when you're watching this, I titled him as His Royal Highness Prince Harry and wished him a happy birthday. And I had people, the Duke of Sussex, and I had people questioning that and saying that that is not his title. And it's very frustrating when, obviously, I am a royal expert. I go on different television shows and programmes to share my insights and my knowledge. And so it's quite frustrating when people obviously think that I've kind of just plucked out the air and kind of made it up, because it's quite serious. I mean, when you come to how to address people in my line of work with etiquette and things, it is quite important you get the titles spot on. So, as I said, as it stands at the moment, the Queen has not withdrawn their titles. They are the Royal Highness of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, and that will remain for the foreseeable future, as far as I'm concerned. As I said, who knows in the future what's decided, but right now, that's how it is. I mean, another interesting example was the Queen's uncle, because he was King Edward VIII and caused the constitutional crisis when he abdicated. And at that point, people were kind of wondering what he would be called. What would he have his titles taken away? Would he just be Edward, Windsor? What would his title be? And George the Sixth's brother agreed that he would keep the HRH, His Royal Highness, and his wife would be Her Royal Highness, and then they were given the titles the Duke and Duchess of Windsor. And that was that's just an example, because what took place then was so serious and could have damaged the monarchy, and thankfully it didn't. But yet they didn't have their titles withdrawn. I mean, obviously he abdicated, so he wasn't going to be king, but they were still allowed to use their titles, and they used them up until the point of their death. So it's not unusual for titles to be changed or certainly not to be given to royals, especially when they're in direct line. But it's an interesting one because, I mean, at one point, monarchs used to reward people with titles, you know, and that kind of still happens with investitures when you have somebody that's made a knight or a dame. But I mean, at one time, you know, in the days of the battles and when they used to get the landowners to kind of support them, you would find that an earl would suddenly become a duke, or a baron would become an earl. So, you know, they could elevate them. And today that doesn't happen. You don't see a normal, and this is a non-royal, so we're not talking about royals here, but you don't see an earl suddenly becoming a duke. I say non-royal because Prince Edward is the Earl of Wessex, and it has been said, and it's apparently been agreed with his late father and his mother and Prince Charles, that when his father passed, which happened in April of this year, that the title goes to the eldest son, Prince Charles, but he will not use it, and when he becomes king, he will then bestow that onto his youngest brother, who will then be the Duke of Edinburgh. So it's quite normal within the royal family for them to give higher titles for different reasons, or because a member of the family has left that title or would like it to be left to another member of the family, which is what's happened in this case, where obviously Prince Edward, the youngest son, was not given a dukedom, he was made an earl, and quite simply because they decided that the Duke of Edinburgh title would be nice if it continued and went down his side of the family, which is what will happen. So it makes sense because it keeps these titles going, but at the same time it's not quite how it used to be. So another good example when it comes to royal titles is that the royals, and not the Queen, obviously, because the Queen, that's the most senior title, the monarch, but with her children, for example, Prince Charles, he's also the Duke of Rossi, and that's it's a very senior title in Scotland. So when he's in Scotland, he'll use that title because that's heir apparent to the King of Scots as such. So he will use the title of the Duke of Rossi. But when he's in England, he'll go back to using the title of the Prince of Wales because that's the heir apparent, a title that's given to the heir apparent if it's bestowed by the King or Queen on the next in line, on their son. So it's interesting how it works, and it can get very confusing. Even anyone can get confused. I mean, because it's not just about how you address them; it's how you write to them. So it can be quite a minefield when it comes to the navigating your way around the titles. And I should also mention that it's been said over the years, why is the Duchess of Cornwall, Camilla, his second wife, why is she not Princess of Wales? Well, technically she is. When she married her husband, Prince Charles, she became the Princess of Wales as well as the Duchess of Cornwall, which is another title of Prince Charles's. When he's in Cornwall, he uses the title of the Duke of Cornwall, which is a senior title in England. But she obviously didn't use it out of respect, I believe, and it's just what I think, out of respect to Diana, Princess of Wales. But again, I believe that when Prince Charles becomes king, and if he does bestow the title of Prince of Wales on his son, then once again we will have a Princess of Wales in his wife, Catherine. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward. I should also quickly mention that Prince Harry's children have not been given titles, so they've got no, they haven't got any titles. They just have normal names, if I can say that. So that was decided again, obviously by the Queen, because it's the Queen that gives them the power of passing a title on. It was reported that she did want to pass the title on, and Harry and Meghan declined it. I have no idea if that's true or not, but that's how it works. It's a discussion. It'll be a discussion that they'll have, and they'll all decide what's the best thing to do going forward. Now, it's also been said, why does Prince Harry's children not have titles? Well, quite simply, according to what we've all been told, is they declined them. Prince Harry and his wife decided they didn't want to have the titles for their children. Now, from what I understood at the time, that everybody else, we all heard that the Queen wanted to bestow a title that they could use, or there is a title that they're allowed to use, and they didn't want to pass that on. So their children will be a Mr. and Mrs. unless that changes. I mean, it could change in the years to come, and they certainly don't have the title of HRH, quite simply because that is great-grandchildren. Remember, Prince Harry is a grandchild, and I mentioned that George V made it possible that his children and grandchildren, well, great-grandchildren do not automatically get an HRH unless the Queen approves it. Prince William's children do have HRH titles because the Queen gave permission for them. She had letters patented again with HRH onto their names so that they could be Royal Highnesses. So all of Prince William and the Duchess of Cambridge's children all are styled with HRH. And that was through the Queen, who gave special permission for that to happen. But it's not an automatic thing, and I think that's what people get confused about. So if anyone said to me that Prince Harry's children do not have titles, absolutely they don't. I mean, as we know, Archie is known as Archie Mountbatten Windsor, and of course, and then you've got his sister Lilibet, named after the Queen. So it's as I said, it is very complicated. It can be very confusing. I hope that it explains it a little bit without confusing matters. But as I said, I love it. I find it fascinating when it comes to members of the royal family and the titles that die out and then come back, because there is royal titles that no longer exist, but they do come back. They get recreated by another monarch to pass on to their children. And it's always fun when you've got a royal wedding, because there's always the excitement and the guessing as to what title is going to be given to the new couple. And I don't know if you remember, but it was the same with Prince William and with Prince Harry. There was all this speculation and guessing as to what they'd be called, what the titles would be. So it's and what's nice is people get excited about it, and I think people even bet. What the title might be. So it's a great subject. I love the debate. I love the conversation. You all know that. I enjoy seeing what you're all talking about. But it's just very frustrating if there's people kind of saying things that just doesn't add up, or it's not exactly spot on. And I'm not saying that I know everything, because I don't. Nobody knows everything. We all learn. I've always said that. We're all learning. And everyone's got, I think it's important that we do question and we do debate, because that's what makes doing these kind of videos and having these conversations fun. So thank you for the debate. Thank you for your views and your ideas and suggestions. And if you think I'm saying something it's inaccurate, I don't mind if you want to raise it, because that's why we can discuss it and double check things. But as I said, thank you for commenting, thank you for liking, and please keep commenting and keep enjoying. I hope you keep enjoying the content. So I hope you've enjoyed today's In Conversation. It's slightly shorter, quite simply because the subject is obviously limited, but I hope you've enjoyed it. As I said a moment ago, please keep engaging in conversation. Please keep subscribing and sharing the videos. I don't know if you've seen that I've started doing shorts, YouTube shorts, where I'm trying to do little etiquette tips as I go along. Let me know what you think of those. Hopefully you're enjoying those, and I'm hoping it tries to increase the subscribers, because I'm trying to get the numbers up. So any help you can give, I'll be grateful, because I'm wanting to build this community. I should mention that I might take a little break from doing the In Conversations, because we've covered so many conversations since the beginning of April for the spring and the summer, that I felt it was a good time to take a little break from them. But don't worry, I've got some new content. We've got some new ideas that we're going to be trying to see how you enjoy them. So there is some new ideas coming along, and then I will be back at some point next week again, possibly on Friday, with something slightly different. So I hope you can join me for that, and have a lovely weekend. And as I said, thank you for liking, commenting and subscribing, and I will see you very soon. But until then, stay safe.